Hi, I'm Dave, founder of Halloween Year Round. I'm joined by my friend Patrick here, whom you saw in our Scream video. And we're trying something a little bit new on the channel, something I've been wanting to do for a long time. It's not quite, I'm not calling it a podcast. It is a weekly talk show called The Weekly Dead Talk. So we're going to come on here. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in horror. And then, each episode weekly is going to have its own topic. Today's topic is Nightmare Alley, 1947 versus 2021. If you have any other ideas for topics you want to see, or if you want to be on it, if you want to be on this show and you have a topic to talk about, leave a comment. But before we get, I know, Patrick, I really like your shadow shirt. Very film noir-y, very appropriate.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Oh my God, that's so cool. Thank you for showing the whole thing.
Oh, no problem.
So,
always happy to, for who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men, the shadow knows.
I should put this episode in black and white if I should do that. So before we get into that, at the beginning of each of our weekly Dead Talks, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's new in horror this week. So for those of you who are subscribed to Shudder and those of you who are fans of Joe Bob Briggs, he is doing another Valentine's Day special this year, like he did last year, February 11th. He's doing I think it's called the Broken Hearts. It's the theme is about the heartbreak around Valentine's Day, and he said there's going to be 4 special guests. So really excited to see that. On a sadder note, we lost Gaspard Ulliel. I don't know if I'm saying that right. He played Hannibal in Hannibal Rising. He tragically passed away this week in a skiing accident. I know a lot of people weren't big on, Hannibal Rising, not the best movie in the series, but he did a really good job as young Hannibal Lecter. I felt like he got the creepiness of it. He's also going to appear in the upcoming Marvel series, Moon Knight. And it's been a rough year for celebrity deaths already because we lost Meatloaf this week.
And Louis Anderson too.
And Louis the same day. But I mean, from a horror standpoint, look at, Meatloaf. He was in the original Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh yeah.
Bat Out of Hell. I mean, name a more epic power ballad musician than Meatloaf. So he will certainly be missed. And I definitely listened to I Would Do Anything for Love like 50 times in the last couple days. Just on repeat. So let's get into the reason we're here. Nightmare Alley. Now, Patrick, why don't you? So I came into this seeing the new one, really liking it, and then going back to the original. But tell me a little bit about, you were already a fan of the original.
Yes. I had been very curious about checking out Nightmare Alley, the original 1947 as a film. And I myself was very curious because I love film noir. I love detective stories. I love, like I said, like the dark psychological side of things, when it comes to not just horror, but also just in terms of psychological thrillers.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I had read about Nightmare Alley, it was a very important as a film for film noir, especially during that time, as it was one of the first major ones with a huge studio budget behind it, with 20th Century Fox as a Fox as a backing it. So I was very curious, especially when it came to the Criterion Collection on Blu-ray for the very first time. And I said to myself, I want to check this out because I was just looking for a good film noir classic just to sink my teeth into.
How long ago was this rough? This wasn't in response to the new one coming out, right?
Oh yeah, correct.
This was a while ago.
Yeah, is it? Well, actually, if I'm correct, I think it was in 2020. Let me just do it.
Okay.
Quick double check on that one. I think it was
because I cards on the table. I was not aware of that movie until I saw the trailers for the new one, and then I think you were telling me about it.
Yes, I was the one who was currently recommending that to you. Oh yes, here it is. It actually is Yes, the Blu-ray edition of Nightmare Alley for 1947 for Criterion came out on May 25th of 2021. So this must have been like in response to the
Okay.
newer film that was going to be coming out later that
They
year.
re-released it.
Yeah, it's like yes, they did re-release it. Yeah, it had been available digitally for a while, but it's always nice, like when Criterion gives it like the extra white glove treatment in terms of cleaning,
The
doing
restoration goes a
yeah,
long way.
absolutely.
So
But
definitely
yeah,
two very different movies.
yes.
What
And
do you like about the original?
for me personally, especially like after seeing it for the first time, downstairs in my home theater setup, and once again, I'm really glad I recommended you to check out, both as well, because I was actually surprised that you did go out to see 2021 Nightmare Alley, and I was like, wow. But back to topic, I really just love just how excellent the story is. I love great character-driven plots. And especially when it came to like the acting performance of Tyrone Power himself. My goodness, he was just incredible. You were just instantly captivated by his portrayal of Stan in terms of like what he was about, like what he wanted out of life, how far he would go just to reach out and grab it, even to the point as a point of like literally like murdering like as others
I mean, you got to do
get his
what
way.
you got to do. I love there's an anecdote. I don't know if you've heard it or not, that the original movie was kind of so iconic among like psychics and mentalists at the time that a common code word between them was, "Oh, are you a friend of Stan Carlisle?" And that was code for like, "Oh, are you on the up and up? That like this is fake?
Mm.
Like I get
Ah,
it."
now actually that is new to me, so thank you for educating me on that.
Yeah, it sort of became the Stan Carlisle. It is kind of like, he's like the archetype of like the swindling psychic that, you've got shows, today, oh, let's expose them, let's bust them. Look at for those who are a fan of Penn and Teller's bullshit on Showtime, they kind of did stuff like that where they exposed, frauds. But it's interesting how far it goes in both versions, and that's kind of what I want to talk about a little bit here
Yes,
is the character development. So
yes,
you have two similar but very different portrayals of Stan Carlisle.
yes,
Tyrone Power, he's definitely coming into it as more of like a theater person. That's how cinema was back then. It was much more theatrical.
yes, that is correct.
And I have trouble deciding, and maybe you can help me decide, which one is more sinister. Because you have Tyrone Power that definitely seems more calm and collected the entire time. But something that really stuck out to me about the Bradley Cooper version is at the beginning of the movie, he's the only one that kind of shows humanity towards the geek. He's the
Yes.
one who's like, this is really messed up what you're doing to this person. And it begs the question, was that version of Carlisle one who started out more moral, who lost his morals as he went? Or is he a sociopath and that's just an act at the beginning? He's pretending to be the only one who cares about the geek.
Hmm. That's a very, very excellent question, and one that I definitely will need to think a little more deeply on, because you are correct. Like you don't really know necessarily like, if that's the case or not, because he's just a very enigmatic is an enigmatic person, as a
Mm-hmm.
personality type. You just really just trying to figure out exactly like what's going on behind his mind is like, what always fascinated me, like especially like seeing like both films, just that kind of drive. I mean, I could definitely see the Bradley Cooper version, like he might have had definitely some genuine sympathy, but he might have also had been doing it just to try to cozy up to the circus owner so that he could
To
then
what's his
get.
name, Willem Dafoe, and I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm gonna be interchanging their character names with their actor names just because
uh
that's how I describe them.
Yeah, and that's okay, and I'll help to fill in any gaps if you have them. But yeah, I'd be more than happy to
But
do so.
it almost makes him more sociopathic, and I just feel like the original, in the original, you definitely see it's a descent into madness. It's a descent,
Yes,
and it's like the farther he goes, the more he's willing to do.
yes.
And not to spoil the ending, but if you're watching the spoilers, I want to talk a little bit about how that ghost scene plays out at the end in both versions.
Yes, and actually, I definitely wanted to talk about the ending for both as well.
Go ahead.
And that,
So tell me a little bit about the original, your thoughts on it.
okay, so like what? So wait, you mean just in general, or just like or just as a whole? Because I didn't need a little context, please.
Just about like the ending, the ghost scene, and how that played out, and how like that's where everything
Ah,
falls apart for him.
right. Okay. So from what I've read actually about the 47 film, the ending itself was it was very different from the original novel as they couldn't necessarily like per, they didn't want to portray it as darkly as it was in the original novel. In the original novel, he's so down on his luck that he literally sells himself to become like the next geek at another as a circus. Whereas this one, with the ghost scene, like once that illusion as it breaks, he is it like he is scrambling to get back. You then have like is it Lilith, the psychiatrist, ultimately is it conning him at the end of the story. Yeah, is it like is it trying to get away as quickly as he can, ultimately becoming more down on his luck to the point where he's even like reiterating the very things that he talked about. Um, is it from his mentor earlier in the film about, oh, um, did you have a dog when you were a child? Because
Mm-hmm.
that was always the thing at the time. Like, like always a young boy, is a boy with a dog that he loved that he had to, put down, like, that kind of thing. And it's fascinating like how the ending of it where he is broken, but the love but his love interest like finds him and tries to help him out, kind of comes full circle, just like what happens like from the very beginning of the movie where you see both of those as a characters. Let me just do a quick
It
look.
is interesting that in the older one, she still tries to redeem him, and there's no
Right,
such,
right.
in the new one,
Yeah, there
like you
is.
said, Del Toro goes much farther, and part of that is the
Yes,
Hays Code
yes,
that they
that
couldn't.
is
I
true.
mean, hell, we see him smash the dude's face
Oh yeah, cause
and
yeah,
kill him. Like he
yeah.
punches him so much, and he's like pulling little bits of skull
Oh
out of
yeah.
his
Oh yeah, it was.
fist.
Yeah, it
So
was definitely more gruesome in the Toro adaptation. Yes.
yeah, I think in a weird, Del Toro definitely captures the sort of intensity and how grotesque a thing he's doing. Del Toro visualizes that really well in a way that you just couldn't do in 1947. I don't hold it against the original for not going
Right.
that far. Just
Right.
they were
Exactly.
limited by the code of their time.
That is true. But at the same time, though, I also have a counterpoint to that because, it wasn't just like audience expectation and the code itself. It also was, I think more or less just the theming and dynamic. In this case, see, like I said, the full circle aspect of like how he becomes broken at the end and then he needs support as a support. Thus as it does, it's like the circle of destruction.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I personally interpret it, and especially as a more story driven aspect of it for the 47 film, that's what I really loved about it. Like each character, like like very much like entrenched in like their beliefs and what they go through and what they believe. It's just a very
Mm-hmm.
story driven epic, and the 2021 film does a great job of that too. Even like with Willem Dafoe's character even saying to Bradley Cooper's Stan, that when he says like, you cannot lie to God, you cannot lie as a God, is it in what you are trying to pursue. That struck me very strongly in the
Mhm.
2021 film because like I can't really think of another movie that would even go that far today in terms of really like solidifying that and more or less showing like if you go down this path, there is nothing but destruction, sadness, and
I
despair, which is
I
exactly what happens.
I actually feel like the newer one does a better job of foreshadowing that. Granted, it's a bit more on the nose, but that dinner scene
Yeah,
between Bradley Cooper and Willem Dafoe, where he talks about like how do you get a guy to even be a geek? I mean, that
yeah,
basically foreshadows the ending in a way that I
yes,
like that the new one does that. But you're right, you lose some of that subtlety. And when
right,
it comes to subtlety, I have to bring up Dr. Ritter, the
yes,
psychiatrist,
hmm
who in the new one, don't get me wrong, I love Kate Blanchett, very
hmm
talented actress.
yes,
She feels like a villain from the very beginning.
yeah, I
They
do
the
agree with you.
movie makes no attempt to conceal or like
Yeah,
she seems like a bad person. You know, it
yeah,
almost it feels like she's still in character from playing Hela in Thor Ragnarok.
yeah, I could see
The,
that.
the Dr. Ritter of the original is more dangerous because she's like at first she seems like a perfectly normal psychiatrist. So you know
Right,
her sinister actions come as more of a surprise. So in the new one,
exactly,
you're like, well, of course Kate Blanchett betrayed you because you jumped into proverbial bed with her right from the
hmm
get go to rip people off. And I think that in the original it was more of a build up.
exactly, and that's where I really love the 47 films like development of that. Like I said, that subtlety. That's what I really love,
Mm-hmm.
especially from more story driven, like films like that. I mean, I love everything from the classic to the contemporary, but older films, like especially during that time period and era, like really like the actors had to really develop their craft. They really had to sell you in on the
Well,
characters they were developing.
it's all they had. It's all they
Yes,
had to rely on.
right,
They didn't
exactly.
have the spectacle. They didn't have CGI.
Exactly. Yeah, which I think like, like a lot of viewers out there, like, you may not realize that, but that is, very important to know
Mm-hmm.
that that was the way the world was. So it's very interesting to, see, like I said, more story driven, like, from deep within the actors, like, very souls and then how they bear it out to you, versus like, just hiding behind like, like a CGI mask or whatnot in order to try to get the point
Mm-hmm.
across. So like it's just something that I always appreciate from older films, and that's why I really wanted to kind of do this comparison with you because I mean like I said, as a fan of film noir, and especially with like great building of suspense and atmosphere, those like femme fatales and whatnot, which is what we see with Dr. Ritter, especially in the 47 film, very classic, like femme fatale, like you think she's a fairly normal person until you start to but slowly you start to like peel behind the curtain and see her what her true intentions are.
Mm-hmm.
So that's so I
And
do
you don't see it coming as much.
exactly, exactly.
So as far as themes go, I think the original definitely has more of a subtle, more subtlety with its story and its characters. The newer one goes to places much further. Which one do you think gets its point across better?
That's a very good one. Well, like I said, for me, like it's kind of like it's like me just asking a basic question, like, do you like your story more like, like story driven, or do you what is it want it more is it visually driven? If you want it more story driven, I would say the 47 film. But if you want it more visually driven, I would say the 2021 film of Del Toro, because Del Toro's like what I do love about Del Toro is that he can craft an entire world and you like, can get lost in it, like, visually in terms of like, the various things. Like every set piece and whatnot is very like has unique symbolic meaning. That's what I've always loved about his work,
Hmm.
especially like the way he crafts, like, like the carnival scene, and like, like the like everything from the Geek's Pit to to the haunted house, like, of the seven deadly sins, like, as Bradley Cooper's Stan character, like, is like walking through, and you really kind of start to see like that beginning of descent into madness. And once again, like the various visual flashbacks of him, like, and what happened to his father is very striking.
Which
So
are
like,
absent in the original,
right, yeah,
where
that
you
is
you see how far he's so it's less subtle, but I think it throws a lot more at its viewer. I think that
right.
ultimately what I walked away from the original, or what I walked away from the new one was, and mind you, this was the first one I saw, was that the depths of depravity that a person is willing to go.
Hmm.
And I think the new or the original doesn't quite get that across. It tells its story better, but I
Hmm.
feel like the new one kind of drives that point home better.
And I see exactly where you're coming from. And
Mm-hmm.
I actually do agree with you on that one. Like I said, for me, like for more story driven, that's why I like the 47 film, but I do agree with you in terms of driving the point home a little more, especially in the visual department. I would definitely say the 2021 film
Mm-hmm.
nailed that.
So to kind of wrap things up, overall, which would you say you prefer and why?
Well, like I said, like, like I grew up like watching like a lot of older movies myself. Like, this comes directly from my father, who, introduced me to like, older cinema, as well as also older TV shows, like, of the 40s, 50s and 60s, like Burke's Law, 77 Sunset Strip, the original Twilight Zone. You like, so like I have more of a, you know, I have more of a critical eye when it comes to like, older cinema. So I would
Well,
say
you have a preference for them.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I do have more of a preference. So personally, if I had to choose between the two, I would definitely say the 47 film to me was better. But like I said, more from a story driven, as well as also with Tyrone Power, absolute powerhouse. Like I couldn't have picked a better actor for a role like that. And like he really drives it home. So I'll say the 47
Mm-hmm.
film is my personal preference, like based on what I love and enjoy. But at the same time though, the 2021 film was not bad. I definitely enjoyed it as well. I think it definitely like hammered its point a little harder.
No,
But
no pun intended.
yeah, no pun intended. But but if you ask me, but if you just ask me point blank, which one of the two, I'd say the 47 film. I like that better.
So me being the disturbed individual that I am, I like it when something is willing to go further. I like it when, it's not afraid to just go all out with its brutality. And just the newer one, it holds nothing back.
Yeah,
It shows just like he smashes a dude's face, he runs over the other dude with a car. Like at that point,
oh yeah, his
nothing is
bodyguard.
off limits.
Hmm.
And it's like he's beyond saving. And I think that's why you don't get that scene of Molly trying to redeem him at the end.
Right. And
So
that, yes,
I have to say I'm a little more partial to new one now. Part of that is bias towards I really like Guillermo del Toro, but
gotcha.
going back and watching the original, I loved kind of seeing like there's two ways to tell this story. Like it's a fascinating
Exactly.
story, and there are multiple ways you can do it, and neither one is necessarily right or wrong. They're just very different
Right.
approaches.
And I agree with you on that 100%. And that's why I enjoyed both overall.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just the same story, just they're just told a little bit differently. That's why I was like originally I was a little apprehensive. I'm thinking to myself like, oh, is Del Toro just going to do another remake? And he actually clearly states it like that this is his interpretation of the story. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
remake. And I was like, thank goodness, because I
It
wanted
very
this to
much was
and
his
that's actually
own.
and that's why I have respect for
Mm-hmm.
for Del Toro's version, because it's not just I'm gonna like, rewatch the 47 as a film. I think he even states like he wasn't necessarily like fully aware of it, or he didn't want to watch that would influence him for this
Yeah,
one. So I'm
I
glad that
wouldn't
was
I
the
wouldn't have
case.
wanted to either. I would have just gone to the source material. I think that was the way to do it. So if you are interested, I know the original is streaming for free on YouTube.
Is it? That is
The
true.
original 1947 version is on YouTube.
You can also stream it on the Criterion Collection channel as well, or if you're like me who loves like physical media,
You
you
can
own
just
it.
buy it. Oh,
Yeah,
he's going to get it.
yeah, I'm gonna.
The new one is not out on DVD or Blu-ray yet, but should be in the coming months. All right, let's see it.
Yep, here we go.
Yo,
Nightmare
that is
Alley.
cool.
It is very
And
excellent.
of course, it's the Hangman,
Yep,
the
which
Hangman
is
Tarot card.
actually, speaking of which, the really cool thing about the Criterion Collection, which is really awesome, is the fact that it also gives you a booklet, which
Oh,
gives you like more.
nice. I
Yes,
gotta
which gives
get
you.
more of those.
Well, like I said, like it's on sale right now, like on Amazon and other places for $20. So I consider it like an absolute buy.
All right. Well, if anyone's interested, check that out on Amazon.
And
Like I said, if there are any other topic, oh my God, it comes with the cards.
yes, it actually comes with
That is
several
so
tarot cards.
cool.
Yes, I know. That's what I love about Criterion. They really go the extra mile for this kind of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
you have the character of Stan as the Hangman with the classic tarot magician, the Emperor with our
Very
character
nice.
of Lilith Ritter. You might recognize the character of the foe
That one's my
as
favorite because it's death.
yes, the Star.
Ah, yes, Molly and her
Yep.
indecent exposure outfit that's built for electricity.
Yes. Oh, I love that scene. Actually, both scenes, like in both films, were incredible. Like I loved how you were drawn in as he's talking with the officer, and
Mm-hmm.
how is it, and more or less finding the little bits and pieces of, you know, ah, you is a you originally were trying to get into the army, but you couldn't because of his bum leg, stricken
Mm-hmm.
with polio, but he still was very much you know a religious man. So I loved how they did that piece. And of course, the Wheel of Fortune.
Ah, yes.
But yes,
So let us know, for those of you who've seen one or both, which, what do you like about it? Which one do you like better? Leave a comment or just say hi. And let me know, what other topics do you want us to cover on the weekly Dead Talk? This is something I want to start doing every week. And if you want to be on it, let me know. If there's a topic in horror that you just really want to talk about, I would love to have you. So like, share, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff. If you don't, Stanley Carlisle will have a not so pleasant future for you in mind. And every day is Halloween. Anything to add, Patrick?
yep, that's a yepers. And thank you very much, everyone, for joining. And we will see you next time.